So I am Alison Johnston. I am the lead policy officer in Scotland for the Office of the Information Commissioner. The main and most important bit for this question is that organisations need to know what their legal basis is for processing the information. So they need to know if it's consent, they need to know if it's legitimate interests, because that is going to depend on what you need to do. So if you are relying on consent, the soft opt-in isn't an option. People have to make a definitive action. They have to tell you that yes, we want marketing, we want to hear more from you. And if that is what you're relying on now and that's what you're going to rely on moving forward, you need to look at your current consent process and say, is that compliant with GDPR? If it is, you're fine, you can keep marketing to them. If it's not though, you are probably going to have to go back and start looking at refreshing that consent. When it comes down to legitimate interests, what's really important is thinking about the relationship that you have with that person. So it will be in your legitimate interest to send them marketing about similar events, but it's important that they are similar events, especially when you think about the Privacy and Electronic Communications Regulation, because they say that if you've had a relationship with the individual beforehand, it's okay to send them marketing on similar products. So if you are doing workshops, theatre workshops for kids, it might make sense that you're going to send that person marketing for, say, a show like The Singing Kettle. I'm not sure if they're still around anymore, but that's from my childhood, it's The Singing Kettle. But you probably wouldn't send them anything about Russell Howard, because Russell Howard is definitely, as funny as he is not for children. Okay, so if you're relying on legitimate interests, you need to make sure that whatever marketing you are sending out is relevant to the relationship that you have with the individual. Neither trumps the other. There's no one legal basis that is preferable or trumps anything other. Whatever your legal basis is, they all have the same gravity. It really comes down to what you're doing with that personal information. You could rely on consent for your marketing, but then if you're going to be doing, say, some anonymous research, just looking at where are people coming from, getting an idea of what your market or your audience is like, that would be in your legitimate interest to do that, because you need to understand who your audience is so you can market appropriately. So that would be a time when you'd be using legitimate interests and consent, because you're doing two different types of processing. Whereas if it's for the one process, which is marketing, you have to choose one or the other. You're either using consent, in which case you're making sure it's GDPR compliant, or you're relying on legitimate interests, in which case you have to make sure that any sort of communications that you're sending out are appropriate to the relationship, and just be aware that individuals do have the option to object to you processing that information for direct marketing.